and welcome to A Drummer's Guide to, the podcast answering your questions about what it takes to be a professional musician. My name is Emily Dolan Davis. I've been navigating this professional world for the last, over 20 years now at this stage, and that is why I'm here today to help you do the same, essentially. So if you have a specific thing that you're struggling with, question you'd like to ask me, then you can submit your questions, your episode suggestions to me at emilydrums.com/AMA, and that is exactly what Pete has done for us today. So I'm going to read you Pete's question and then we're going to get into it. So Pete has asked me, I've been playing guitar for 40 years. I know I'm better than most in my area, but I can't seem to break into a situation where I'm playing guitar in a band that is gigging the better venues and not pubs. I've travelled all over to gig and I've never made any money as it's always costed me. I don't know how to make contact with either managers or people in the know. It's very frustrating as I know I'm no spring chicken, but I still have loads to offer. Help! Cheers, Pete. Okay, Pete. I'm for some reason dribbling, but that's fine. So Pete, thank you so much for getting in touch. I really appreciate it. And it sounds like you're quite frustrated with the situation at the moment. And like you say, going out gigging loads all over the shop, but you know, having to essentially pay to play is not ideal when you're trying to make a living from it. Especially if you've been playing for 40 years, you're probably pretty good. And that's not just from you saying, like, I'm probably the best in my area. So there's a few things that sort of come to mind for me. And you haven't left your full name, although you said you wanted to shout out, so that's great. So I wasn't able to look you up online. So there's kind of that element that is a bit of an unknown, but I will talk about that in a little bit. But I just wanted to hit a few points that were in your message. And yes, I'm reading into it completely and I'm kind of creating a narrative in my head. Hopefully some of this is correct and it's what you're experiencing, and hopefully it will help in some ways. So there's a few things that stood out to me. First of all, you said that you're a guitarist, been playing for 40 years, and you're the best in your area, or one of the best in your area, or better than most in your area is what you said. I find this interesting because you haven't explicitly said where you are in the world. And my initial question to you would be, and if you're listening and feeling this too, like I'm one of the best in my area, okay, that's really cool, but let's take the best in your area. What are they doing? Are they doing the kind of gigs that you want to be doing? Are they living the kind of life that you want to be doing, or are they not? Because it may be that your area and the people that are in it are not at a level that you need to be at to be able to do it professionally. Also, you do need to be in an area where you're being pushed, and that might not be geographically. That can be like the groups that you associate with, and that can be online sometimes if you're kind of not able to move to somewhere that is more full of different people with lots of different talents. But the point is, I think it's really worth, just like I said, that statement to me is so interesting because it's like, okay, so you're one of the best in your area. Because I tell you what it makes me think of, right? And I remember always being told this, I think by my dad, I assume, who kind of emphasized this thing of, look, it's great to be a big fish in a little pond, but that's not where you're going to thrive. You know, there's always going to be a bigger pond where you're going to be the small fish. And I think what I liken that to is when I was at school. So when I was at school, me and Charisse, we were the only, we weren't the only drummers in the school, but we certainly were the most experienced, let's put it like that. But we were asked to do everything, like we really were. And it was great, it was fantastic, we loved it. It was like, you know, you are wanted, and people were coming to us, will you play with me on my GCSE or my A-level thing? And as a 12-year-old, you're like, oh my God, I'm playing with these like 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds, oh my gosh. And it was fantastic, you know, the feeling of being in those socially more like advanced groups, if you like, I suppose, like the older kids. You always want to hang out with older kids when you're younger, and that was fantastic. But it was not an environment where we were gonna thrive necessarily. We were thriving because we were young and we were learning, and there was so much to learn, so it was fine. But in terms of, you know, developing a career, we were all school kids. Like, of course we weren't. Like, what? It doesn't make sense. And yeah, it's a very specific kind of situation. But the theory is the same. You need to be in circles where people are doing what you want to be doing. You need to be around those people. And it was only when we recognized this, me and Charisse, when we were probably about, well, it must have been 14, 15. So we started playing with musicians and in bands outside of school. And that's when we started doing gigs outside of school. You know, we were in dingy pubs, we were going out doing that, like rehearsing every week with people that were 10 years older than us, all this sort of stuff. And it was fantastic. It was fantastic for experience and just, you know, really stretching us at the time into not just a different like skill set, but also a different headspace of like, oh, this is the reality and this is kind of what we need to be looking at. And then, I mean, you want to talk about a big fish in a little pond turning to swim out into that big old ocean. You know, when I hadn't left school, but I was, you know, I was playing, let's say, semi-professionally, if you like. I mean, I was playing covers gigs and stuff at the weekends, but I was still, excuse me, in school. But I got called to do a session when I was 17, so I was still in school. And that was my little fish, big pond moment where I realized that, oh my gosh, you know, I've been living this life of like, I'm so good, I'm the best, da, 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 da. And the stark reality hitting of like, no, you're not, you're nowhere close to where you need to be. And that is baseline. It wasn't even like you need to be some virtuoso to come and, in my case, I was asked to record a session, which if you've heard my previous episode on that, and various times I've referenced it, I was asked to go and do a recording session by a producer. It was literally like, this is my moment, this is my big moment. I'm 17. I was like, yes, proper studio, central London, yes, let's go. And I went and it flopped. I failed like hard. And like I say, this was my stark moment of reality of like, oh my gosh, I'm so far out of my depth. And I am so the tiniest little minnow in this giant ocean. And luckily I did step up to it and I did face it, although I definitely tried to circumvent it for a few days. And blame, you know, outside influences, of which is just ridiculous, quite honestly, but teenager innit. So anyway, and what I realized retrospectively is that situation, that recording session, was the bare minimum that I should have been able to, and not should have been able, I was 17, it was part of my process, but that was the bare minimum skill level that needed to be in my bones to get that done. I needed to be at a skill level where that was not a thing. And obviously I got to that point because I addressed those things and I moved on to, you know, having a fairly nice career that I'm very proud of. I'm not very good at talking about myself sometimes. Anyway, but that was the reality. And I think that, and I, like I say, I'm kind of speculating here, Pete, because obviously I don't know your situation, but I would speculate that maybe you're in an environment and surrounded by musicians that are not at the level that you would need to be at to then go and do it professionally. Now, let's assume that maybe you are, okay? So I don't want to say that's clearly the truth and that's what it is, so that's what I'm going to say. So that all being said, right, that's one scenario, if you like. Let's say I'm incorrect. I have not speculated well, and actually, you know, you're in London right now, you are one of the best people in the area, you are, you know, around a lot of musicians who are doing it professionally, they're touring, they're recording, it's their full-time job, and you feel like, oh, you're, you know, running around the country, you're not, you know, you're paying to play, you're not earning any money and you want to. Okay, great. Not great, but you know what I mean. Let's say that that's the scenario. What I then say is maybe it would be worth looking at other aspects other than just your playing that might be affecting why you might not be getting called for work. The most obvious one for me is performance. Okay, so because and I'm sure, okay, right. I had this when I was younger. I'm sure that you have had this, anyone that's listening has also had this, where you feel like your skill level is at a certain, like, I'm good, I can do this. And then you see someone on stage playing, maybe even on a big gig, right? And you're watching them play and you're going, I can literally play like that. That is not hard. That's easy. Why am I not up there? I don't understand. This person isn't even that good a player, right? And I'll admit, I've had moments like that when I was younger, definitely, where I was like, why do they get to be up there and I don't? And sometimes they're not even great. And I'm like, what? I'm a better player than this person. Why do they get to? What's the difference? So, in my experience, what I've noticed, obviously there's an element of personality that does come into this. So let's not just ignore that. So let's hope that you're a nice person, Pete. Judging by your message, I think you are. Like, you don't come across as I was gonna swear, as a not very nice person. But I think it's worth sort of like just, looking at, how, I don't know, how you interact with people. And that's not about necessarily changing how you interact necessarily. I mean, maybe, I don't know you, but I think it's about finding your people that interact and communicate in a similar way, because communication is a massive thing. Like, find your tribe, find your people. But also, as I said, I think that the performance side of things is so underrated and so overlooked, because there's so many musicians that I know that are fantastic players. They're fantastic. But when they play, they look so bored and they have no energy and they have no stage presence and they're not interacting with anyone else on stage. They are literally just nothing. Like, it's like they don't want to be there. And the thing is that an artist, a management company, other musicians, they don't want to play with someone that can just play. Who cares? It's not like, to a certain point, everyone can play. It's not about that. It's about, and this is provided you do have that skill set, obviously, it's about what else can you bring to the table? And on stage, let me tell you from personal experience, once I started developing my performance side of things, that's when doors started opening up for me, because you're bringing vibes to the stage. And it doesn't need to be like, I'm very dynamic when I play. I'm very enthusiastic. I love like really interacting with people and the audience members, and I like sing along and blah, 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 blah. So I'm quite intense, but I think you know this about me anyway. But just bringing some like grit. It can be grit to your playing, Pete. It can be like, I don't know, just something where you're not looking static, bored. There needs to be a dynamicism. Don't know if that's a word. It is now if it isn't. I'm pretty sure it is. But a dynamic element, whether that is physically dynamic or filling the stage with your presence, because there are plenty of musicians like that too. And that does come with just a lot of experience and stuff like that. So I would say that. Also, coming back to, and I know I've sort of touched on this anyway, coming back to skill set, please bear in mind that, if you're seeing someone on stage and they're playing very simple parts, I think that we assume that, and I'm just thinking about myself, whether I used to assume that was the edge of that person's playing, if that makes sense, if that was the capacity of their skill set. It's not. It never is. There are depths and layers and expanses of experience and knowledge that you may not be seeing or hearing in the notes that they're playing. But when you see a player and they might be playing just a few notes, but the feeling behind it has depth. That's the experience bit that is not shown in the notes. And I think that is so important to kind of recognize that whenever you're seeing someone on a gig, that is just the very baseline of their playing often, like so often. So you need to get to a point where you're so far past that that's so within your wheelhouse that it's not, you don't even think about it. And again, that sort of comes back to the performance. It then eases you up to perform and relax and enjoy and bring other elements to the gig. So I think that it would be worth just looking at that maybe. Another thing that I will say as well, if you feel that maybe there's something you're avoiding when it comes to that, whether it's your skill set, whether it's your performance or something else, maybe it's your how you interact with people. The way that I retrospectively realized that it's something that I knew for a long time. I knew for years before I addressed it, and I tried everything to get around and not actually take this head on. And for me, that was performance. When I would watch people that were really good at performing, like really good, they would be dynamic, there would be like emotion, there would just movement and ease, and they would be praised for it. And I would feel jealous. I would feel sometimes, oh my God, that's so cringy, just acting like such a baby, like a child. But yeah, there would be a negative reaction attached to it. And as I look back retrospectively, I think it was so confronting to me that this is clearly the thing that I'm missing. And I'm so jealous that they have this thing. I think more often than not, if not every time, it was someone that was doing what I wanted to be doing. And I would get really I'd make up excuses for myself. Well, I just don't play like that. I just can't do that. I'm just not that type of player. But really, that's being it's so against how I am as a person. I'm a proactive person. I like to do things. For some reason, there was something so confronting about that all of a sudden, it's just who I am, it's just my nature. No, it's rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. If you want to do something, you can go do something. Trust me. I've broken those barriers, those beliefs that I had of myself as a player through various means over the years. And I realized that, my gosh, our scope, our capability is so much wider than we tell ourselves. But you do have to, unfortunately, do the difficult thing and just face it, So anyway, I would say maybe it would be worth looking at that, potentially. But let's say that those things are kind of in place. What other things could you be doing to, get yourself out there? So for me, what I would say is, it sounds like, and I might be wrong here, it sounds like you're kind of outplaying with the same sorts of people. You're running in the same sorts of circles. That's just reading between the lines completely, Pete. I might be wrong. But I do find that we do sort of fall into patterns, I think, and there's safety, there's safety in those patterns. We know what to expect. It might not be exactly what we're after, but at least we feel safe. And I think that becomes a very easy trap to keep falling into. I have multiple students, actually, multiple coaching students who, when things are really tough, they revert back to something that they know doesn't work for them, but they know it. It's the devil it's that sort of thing. And then they'll do it for a little bit and go, what am I doing? I hate this, let's try something different. They try something different. It may not be the exact result they want. They feel discomfort, and then they come back to the thing that they know, back into that loop again. And it's human nature. This is not unusual. It literally happens to all of us in various ways in our lives, whether that be relationships or, lifestyles, habits, all these things, right? It's very hard to get out of circles and cycles and patterns. It's incredibly hard, but it is possible, definitely. So I'd say maybe just look at ways to break those circles that you are currently running in. I think the most direct way of doing that, I think personally, is to you can do a number of things. First of all, I'm always such an advocate for jam nights. I think it's the quickest way to meet people, showcase yourself as a musician in front of many people, and you never know who you're going to meet. Like, jam nights are always, sometimes nothing comes of it, but you have a nice time. You might meet some new people. Well, you're always going to meet new people anyway, but you don't know what's going to come from it. There's something beautiful about jam nights in that way. Excuse me, I'm very hiccupy today. So I would say get out to some jam nights, but in different areas to wherever you are right now, unless you are in London, and in that case, or in a big city, in that case, go to different jam nights in different circles or genres that you wouldn't usually go to, basically. Get out your comfort zone. It's gonna feel uncomfortable. And I always say to my students, like, if you go to a jam night that you're not quite sure what to expect, just go to the first one, just watch, be a spectator, go chat to people, do chat to people, but you don't need to get up necessarily, but just get a lay of the land, you know, see what kind of songs they're playing, maybe note it down, maybe just learn a few that are in that kind of sphere, so that when you do come back, you have a good shot at getting up and playing something that, you know, you are happy with to a degree. I don't think any of us are really happy after a jam night, unless you're in like the house band, or you know the jam night, like you know the people, so you know what we're going to play. So you know what I mean. But in a scenario where you're a new person, I've never ever gone to a new jam night, played and thought, oh, I did a good job there. No, never. I always feel awful about myself, but I always meet interested people. I start coming back. I just keep being brave, and eventually, you know, relationships start to form, and you know, opportunities come up, and then new people come in, and you are the kind of the veterans of the place, if you like, and you get to actually exercise that kindness that other people have done for you, in terms of like trying to help as best you can, or just being friendly, go and have a chat afterwards. Like, the tables turn, and you never know who's going to come through the door. You really don't, especially if you're in a high populated area of lots of musicians. So jam night's always a thing for me. It's where I've made some of my greatest work connections and friends, to be honest. Like, it's about making friends at the end of the day. So another thing that I would do is get out into playing in like different covers bands, and function bands and things like that. And I would do that via either being in touch with musicians that you're already playing with, because you're clearly playing with people, and just say, look, if they have got any covers gigs or whatever, because people are a bit weird about covers gigs and functions gigs, like they're not real gigs. Dude, they are. If you want to be a professional musician, I'm telling you now, like the majority, if not all session musicians that I know, play covers and functions gigs on the regular. It is just a great way to maintain a consistent income, because you are not going to be touring 12 months of the year. It's just not it. It's not the one. There are peaks and there are troughs, and yeah, covers gigs, plus they're fun. There's so much less pressure. Like, they are the enjoyable, like the most enjoyable covers gigs and function gigs, for me at least. You get to be with your mates. It's so awesome. So anyway, so yeah, I'd say get in touch with musicians that you have played with, maybe even other guitarists in your case, Pete, and say, look, if you have anything you need to dip out, I'd love to just jump in for you and help you out, let me know, sort of thing. I know guitarists are a bit weird with each other sometimes when it comes to that sort of stuff. Drummers, not so much. We all love each other, and it's a real community. Guitarists, different, but might be worth trying. Maybe you can change it, Pete. Maybe you can make guitarists all love each other. Maybe. So yeah, I'd say do that. Also, just things like Facebook groups. There's a lot of like DEP Facebook groups, people looking for, you know, musicians for functions band, covers bands, DEP gigs. Even if you just do a basic Facebook search, it's quite useful. And then things like Gumtree and stuff like that. I know that it's kind of, it's very sporadic, but I've got work from that, so you know, I can only tell you the things that will work for me. You know, you do have to be consistent with these things as well. You can't just do it one and done. There needs to be sort of like every week you look up, you do a search, or maybe even every day, or have an alert on Gumtree, or have an alert on Facebook, or I don't even know if you could do that. Well, I suppose you could, yeah, on the groups. But so I'd say maybe look into that. Also, you were saying about playing like bigger venues. Now, to me, like not just pubs, because often a lot of covers gigs are pubs. I have no issue with playing a pub. I actually love playing in a pub. I really do. It's so fun. But I get it. So function gigs are going to be more function rooms. So that's slightly different. If you want to be playing bigger gigs, but sort of, I would look at maybe tribute shows and depping for tribute shows, or often things like that put very formal adverts out. So just doing searches for guitarist wanted, guitarist needed, things like that on Google within the last week or month or whatever, things will come up for shows. Sometimes, like I say, they are advertised quite formally. I'd also say get together some sort of show reel that you can also send out to people, because they're going to want to see you play. And yes, it's great if you play in a room, but getting in the room, that's a whole other thing. They're not going to take a punt because you've just said, hi, I'm a guitarist and I would like to audition for this. It doesn't work that way. There needs to be some element of a visual, or, you know, well, visual and audio, obviously, if they don't know you already. And if you're not out there networking and making friends already, that's going to be at least a way that you can get your foot in the door a little bit. I will say it's the least effective way. I think the most effective way is recommendations, because I was thinking about this and I was like, right, because you said something really specific, actually. There was also another bit of, oh, that's it, because you were saying about finding managers and people in the know. And let me tell you now, I think, so I was thinking about the gigs that I've got, right? And I will run you through real quick. So The Hours was my first professional gig where I got to go full time from that gig. And that was in 2008. That came from Charisse, because Charisse was working with Mika. Mika's front of house was married to the manager of The Hours. And then it became known, oh, they're looking for another drummer. And my friend Charisse went, oh, you should call Emily. So that's how that happened. In 2011, Tricky, Brian Ferry, that was from doing a showcase when I was like 18, one gig with one artist. I met them, her manager, and we just kept in touch. He called for Brian Ferry, random. Tricky, we have never worked out how I got the Tricky gig. We have never worked out. Someone recommended me to the MD. We still can't remember who that is to this day, don't know. Cher Lloyd, again, the keys player, was playing with Charisse again. That was with Mika. He was a new keys player. Asked Charisse, do you know any female drummers? Yes, call Emily. Janet Devlin, that was another one that was a random one that I still am not sure where that came from. Tom Bailey came from Jeff Dugmore, who is a drummer that I have known since I was 16. And we have just stayed friends, and he just called me and said, look, Tom's asked me to do this gig, Thompson Twins, it's an 80s band, I can't do it, do you want to do it? Go meet with him. And I was like, okay. And then Howard Jones came through, Jonathan Atkinson, another drummer, and then that led to Kim Wilde. I was depping for Jonathan on that gig, and then ended up being a double drummer gig. The Darkness came from a video on YouTube coupled with a recommendation from one of their techs, who I had happened to do one gig with Brian Ferry. So once out of all of those things has it been a manager that I happen to have played in front of, and I can't even remember how I got that random gig. But there are, let me tell you, right, those are the kind of the named gigs that I've played, and I probably missed some, so I apologize if I have. But when I tell you that in between all those named big gigs, I was still doing covers gigs, functions gigs, tiny gigs, new artist gigs, gigs where I wasn't being paid, like little things here and there, and gradually just meeting all these different people. Oh, The Voice. I knew that was one I'd forgotten. The Voice Kids. That's embarrassing. The Voice Kids, I met the MD on a jam night, and literally we just stayed in touch. I think we played maybe 3 times over 10 years, and then he just calls me out the blue. And I think it's because he'd been seeing me do these videos, and he liked the kind of positive aspect, and he was like, I think you'd be great like for the kids. It wasn't even about my playing. I mean, he knows I can play, and that it was a given, but that wasn't why I got the gig. It was because of my attitude and personality, basically, I believe. That's what he told me. So so I think that should illustrate that actually the playing has never really been a part of it. And I don't know whether that says about, like I said, I think the playing was a given, and if I couldn't do the gig, if I wasn't capable, I wouldn't be getting the call. But the gigs didn't come from managers. They didn't come from people in the know. They came from mates that I have just been friends with for like 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And then they're like, oh yeah, Emily would be good for that. give her a call. Like, just very casual, very casual. And the thing is that they know that I will come in and I will do the gig and I will do a good job, because they know that I am very meticulous and annoying and have high anxiety, and therefore I over prepare, so the job will get done and it will be to a high standard, because I have bits of my brain that are broken that make me that way and I use it to my advantage. But I hope that kind of helps in some way, in terms of like this misconception about you need to know managers, you need to know people in the know. No, the people that are going to be hiring you are going to be your mates, because it's going to be musical directors or even managers will ask the band, right, we need a new keys player, for instance. Like, does anyone have any recommendations? And of course you're going to want to get your mate in, because you want to have a laugh on tour. You don't want some rando in who might be crazy or rubbish, because let me tell you, this is fine to say, there have been managers that I know that have put out random like adverts to find musicians rather than actually asking the band members, and they have ended up with just not the best players at all, and B, like just inexperienced people who don't know how to tour well, and it has ended in tears. And so I think, and like I say, there's only once that I've ever seen that happen, and it was so shocking to like me and everyone that I knew and everyone involved in that world, and it was just like, are they crazy? Like, that is insane, because it's so not the done thing. Like, the managers very rarely do they or should they be choosing the musicians. Let me tell you, it's different if it's an audition. If it's an audition, fine, go and do the thing. But musicians recommend musicians, and the only way that's going to help you is if you are out there meeting more musicians and finding your people and getting on with people and playing with people and connecting with people, and that's it, and maintaining friendships and relationships. And that is where things like social media can be really beneficial in terms of like keeping in touch, keeping top of mind with people. Pete, you didn't leave any sort of like, I couldn't find you on social media because you only gave me your first name, which is fine, that's absolutely fine. But I don't know if you have a social media presence. If you do, I definitely look at that in terms of utilizing it to create connections, to showcase yourself, which I always talk about. Like, your social media should be your rolling show reel, your rolling EPK, your rolling CV, just so you can be like, hey, this is what I do. Like, it's not a big deal. It's just like, hey, I'm here. This is what I do day in, day out. Like, if you have any work, let me know. It's kind of just letting people know that you're around, basically. It doesn't need to be so overt, but it's just such a useful tool. It's so good. Anyway, let me just check my notes real quick to double check that I've got everything here, but I think that's pretty much it. Yes, I think that's it. So, Pete, I hope that this has helped you in some way, and anyone else that is listening that is in a similar boat that kind of is like, yeah, I feel like that too. Look, it's hard, it is difficult, and obviously, as I mentioned, I am reading between the lines a lot here, so I hope that I've hit some nails on the head, some points. If there's anything that you personally are listening to and you're like, oh, she's wrong about that, or you know, if you have a visceral reaction, negative reaction, well within your rights, like, hey, you can feel however you want, but I would say maybe question why that is, because from my personal experience, those are the things that I was avoiding. Those were the things that actually made a huge difference to me. So just putting that out there, and you can pick it up if you like, or you can put it down, leave it on the ground. But anyway, if you have a specific question that you would like me to answer on a future episode, please get as specific as you can so I can really get into the nitty gritty. Give me all the deets you want. Details, because I'm old and not that cool. Then you can go to emilydrums.com/AMA. You can remain anonymous if you want. You can leave me your name for a shout out. I will look at your socials if you want me to have a look at that, see if that's what the downfall is, or not downfall, but weak spot, should we say, or could be improved upon. But yeah, as much detail as you can, I'd really appreciate it, because it makes for a richer episode, and I do feel that it helps people in a better way. So if you want that, then go to emilydrums.com/AMA. And if you would like to work together sort of one-to-one, if you want more of a personal coaching session, I'm now offering a 30-minute free taster coaching session. It's very snappy and catchy. Anyway, it's a free 30-minute session. We just have a chat. We talk about where you are, where you want to be, and I will tell you any things that sort of like come to mind in the moment. And then towards the end of the call, I'll just mention to you if you're interested in like doing more coaching moving forward. But the first session, 30 minutes, is free. So no obligation, no expectation, just rock up and we'll have a chat. It'll be really nice. It'll be nice anyway to have a chat to you as a listener. Like, it's always nice for me just to get to know you a little better. But if you're interested in that, just go to emilydrums.com. You can book in there for the free 30-minute discovery call. And as always, do the whole like, share, subscribe thing. You know the drill. But I hope that this has helped you in some way. Thank you again to Pete for this question. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your openness, your honesty, and I hope that it's helped you and anyone else that's listening in a similar boat. But anyway, I shall love you and leave you on that note. Hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are, whatever you're up to, and I shall see you next time for another episode. All right, see you later. Bye.
It's